Okay, let's go back Orlando, Florida. It's the summer of 2008. It's humid, it's heavy, and something's just not right. On July 15th, a call comes into 911. A grandmother, Caylee Anthony, sounds frantic, almost disoriented. She's reporting something no grandmother ever wants to say out loud. Her 2-year-old granddaughter, Caylee, is missing. But then she says something even stranger, something that grabs dispatch's full attention. It smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car. Yeah, that's not your everyday missing persons call. Now let's just pause here. Imagine that. Your daughter's car smells like death, and you're only now realizing your grandbaby hasn't been seen in over a month? Caylee Anthony tells dispatch she hasn't seen Caylee in 31 days. Not only that, her daughter Casey has been avoiding them, dodging questions, giving excuse after excuse about where Caylee was. And listen, I don't know about you, but I feel like if a toddler disappears for more than, 24 hours, things should escalate pretty quickly. But 31 days? That phone call is the crack in the dam. What follows would become one of the most sensational and divisive criminal cases in American history. This isn't just a true crime story. It's a cultural moment. And at the center of it all, Caylee Marie Anthony, the woman who would become, almost overnight, one of the most hated figures in America. Before we go further, let's meet the people at the center of this storm. The Anthonys lived in a modest home in Orlando. Picture a typical suburban neighborhood, quiet, unremarkable. Cindy and George Anthony, the parents, Casey, their daughter, and little Caylee, who, by all accounts, was a bright, beautiful child, full of life. Big brown eyes, sweet smile. Just adorable. Cindy was a nurse. She was the matriarch, organized, assertive, a little controlling, but clearly cared deeply about her family. George was a former cop turned security officer, soft-spoken, struggling with unemployment around the time this all went down. And Casey, well, Casey was 22 years old in 2008. On paper, she was just a young mom trying to figure things out. But here's where it starts to get messy. From the outside, they looked like a normal family. But once the investigation began, it quickly became clear. This house was built on secrets, tension, a lot of sweeping things under the rug. Casey lived at home with her parents, along with Caylee. There was no real father figure in Caylee's life. Casey never fully disclosed who the father was. She gave different names, different stories, but nothing added up. And let's talk about Casey for a minute. Friends described her as fun, a little reckless, always down to party. But she also had a history of lying. Like a lot. Even about really unnecessary things. One friend said Casey told her she worked at Universal Studios. Spoiler alert, she didn't. And we'll get into that later. So when the police show up after that 911 call, they're already confused. No one's seen Caylee in a month. Casey doesn't seem all that panicked. And when the officers start asking basic questions, the lies just start piling up. And the deeper they dig, the weirder it gets. Okay, so now that we've met the Anthonys and heard that chilling 911 call, let's talk about those 31 days. The ones no one can make sense of. Between June 16, 2008, the last day Caylee was reportedly seen alive, and July 15th, when she was reported missing, Caylee Anthony lived what seemed like a double life. According to her parents, Caylee was last seen with Casey the day after Father's Day. Casey left the house with Caylee, saying she was going to spend a few days with a nanny named Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez. But no one ever saw Caylee again. And while her daughter was missing, Casey was out clubbing. Literally. Photos surfaced later of her entering a hot body contest at Fusion Lounge. She's drinking, dancing, smiling like nothing's wrong. And this is what enraged people. Not just that she didn't report her daughter missing, but that she seemed to be celebrating her freedom. She even got a tattoo during that time. You know what it said? Bella Vita. Translation, beautiful life. That was on July 2nd. Caylee had been gone over 2 weeks at that point. I mean, that timing. It's almost symbolic. And not in a good way. And if you're wondering, wait, where did everyone think Caylee was? The answer is, Casey just kept lying. She told her mom and friends that Caylee was staying with a nanny, or with a friend, or that she was at Disney, or that she was asleep or sick or napping in the car. The stories kept shifting. Her mother Cindy called her out more than once, but Casey always had a new excuse. Now here's the really wild part. When the police finally confront Casey after that 911 call, she doubles down. She insists she's been working hard to find Caylee herself for the past month. She even says she didn't want to worry anyone. She tells the cops, "I've been doing my own investigation," like she's Nancy Drew or something. It's bizarre. She claims she spoke to the nanny, that she even met with her. And when officers press for details, where does this nanny live? Where do you work? Casey gives them names, addresses, all these specific little lies. But when police follow up, none of it exists. Not the nanny, not the job, not the office, not even the daycare center she says Caylee was attending. Just nothing. One officer later said it felt like peeling back layers of fiction. Like Casey had built an entire false life, and no one had noticed. It's almost surreal. Like, how do you fake a whole job at Universal Studios? But she did. She even drove police to the building, walked them through the hallways, pretending to look for her supervisor, until she finally turned around and said, "Okay, I don't work here." It was like watching a house of cards fall apart, one flimsy lie at a time. So now the police know the story doesn't add up. But what's even more disturbing is Casey's attitude during this whole thing. The detectives describe her as eerily calm, detached, like too chill for someone whose toddler has been missing for over a month. While Caylee's face starts showing up on missing posters and news bulletins, Casey's biggest concern seems to be her boyfriend. She texts him constantly, talks about how she wants to move in, sends him flirty messages, mentions Caylee maybe once or twice. There's also surveillance footage from the days after Caylee disappeared. Casey's at Target, shopping, buying clothes, video games, makeup, living life like it's just a regular week. Her friend Amy, who Casey had been crashing with, later testified that Casey stole money from her, checks, gas cash, even groceries. Like she needed to fund her new carefree lifestyle, no questions asked. One night, she even goes out dancing at the club. Those infamous photos? She's wearing a blue dress, arms around friends, smiling ear to ear. Someone caught her doing a keg stand. It's these images that would later be used everywhere in the media. Because they're jarring, they seem to scream, "I don't care." And for a country watching this unfold in real time, they were unforgivable. The defense would later say, look, people grieve in weird ways. Not everyone breaks down. Some people go numb. They shut off. They avoid. And that's valid, sure. But the lies, the theft, the complete lack of urgency to find her daughter, that's what made it different. What we were all watching wasn't just a case. It felt like a mask slipping off. And for the first time, the world began asking the question out loud. Did Caylee Anthony do something to Caylee? Let's rewind a bit, because there's a key piece of evidence that shifts this whole case into darker territory. Casey's car. The white Pontiac Sunfire. It had been towed from a parking lot where it was abandoned for several days. When George Anthony went to retrieve it, he said he immediately noticed a horrific smell coming from the trunk. A smell he recognized from his time as a cop. Smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car. Cindy's words in the 911 call. Now that's not a casual thing to say. That's not a misplaced cheeseburger. That's serious. When crime scene investigators opened the trunk, they found a few items. A stained piece of carpet, a laundry bag, some trash. But no body. Still, what they did find sent chills down everyone's spine. A cadaver dog hid on the trunk, meaning it detected the scent of human decomposition. Forensic analysis showed there was a single hair in the trunk microscopically similar to Caylee's and had what they called a death band. That's a kind of darkening that occurs near the root of a hair when the person has died. There was also high levels of chloroform detected. Now, chloroform is a chemical that can be used to knock someone unconscious. It's not found in a normal car interior. And yet, it was saturating the trunk liner. Investigators even looked through Casey's search history on the family computer. What they found was chilling. There were searches for terms like how to make chloroform, neck breaking, how to make weapons at home, missing child plus decomposition. Now, to be fair, there were disputes later over who made those searches and when. The defense tried to suggest it could have been someone else in the house. But either way, it was bad. Like Very bad optics. Another thing, there were traces of decomposition fluid in the trunk carpet. You can't see it with the naked eye, but under testing, it's there. And it was consistent with human remains having been stored there for a short time. All of this led investigators to a disturbing but increasingly likely theory that Caylee's body had been in the trunk of that car and then moved. But moved where? Well, it wouldn't be long before that answer came. On December 11, 2008, nearly 6 months after Caylee was last seen, a utility worker named Roy Kronk was walking near the Anthony family home, less than a mile away. He was in a wooded area, relieving himself off the beaten path, when he noticed something strange near a fallen tree. At first, he thought it was a bag of trash, but then he looked closer. Inside a trash bag, he found a small skull. Nearby, a baby blanket, plastic Winnie the Pooh bag, tiny bones scattered around like fallen leaves. The remains were so decomposed, so fragile, that they had to be collected carefully, piece by piece. Investigators and medical examiners spent days trying to reconstruct what happened. DNA confirmed what everyone feared. It was Caylee Anthony. The news hit like a punch to the gut. For 6 months, the media had followed every rumor, every twist. And now there was no more speculation. Caylee was dead, but the condition of her remains left many questions unanswered. The medical examiner ruled the death a homicide by undetermined means. No trauma was visible. But there was one deeply disturbing detail: duct tape. 3 pieces found near the skull, one over the mouth, one across the jaw, and one anchoring it all. Some experts said the placement suggested the tape was applied before decomposition, possibly to suffocate. There were also traces of adhesive on Caylee's face that matched the duct tape. And while the prosecution would argue that this was clear evidence of murder, the defense would question the forensics, suggest animal activity could have scattered the remains, and imply the evidence was circumstantial. But one thing was clear to the public: something terrible had happened. A child doesn't end up bagged in the woods, wrapped in trash bags, with duct tape on her face, by accident. The discovery turned the public's attention from morbid curiosity to fury. People began camping outside the Anthony house. They shouted "baby killer" at Casey. They waved signs. Reporters swarmed the street 24/7. It became a full-on circus. And now the stage was set for what would be called the trial of the decade. By the time Caylee's remains were found, the case had already taken on a life of its own. This wasn't just a tragedy. It was the story everywhere. Every screen, every magazine rack. You couldn't go a single day in late 2008 without hearing Caylee Anthony's name. And honestly, the media made it personal. Nancy Grace, who had already built a name off high-profile crime coverage, nicknamed Casey Top Mom. And she was relentless. Every night, she'd blast the same points. Why would a mother go party while her child was missing? Why so many lies? Where's the remorse? And people ate it up. It wasn't just that a child was dead. It was the way Casey behaved. The dancing, the lying, the duct tape, the audacity. Public outrage hit a fever pitch. Crowds gathered outside the Anthony house, yelling at Casey from the lawn. People sold t-shirts, made YouTube videos, held candlelight vigils for Caylee, and protests at the courthouse. It wasn't just about justice anymore. It was judgment. And here's the thing about media attention at that level: it distorts everything. It compresses timelines, simplifies complex details, and makes people pick a side before the trial even starts. In this case, that side was almost universal. Caylee Anthony was guilty, period. But the law doesn't work off vibes. It runs on proof. And as the prosecution would soon learn, proof was going to be harder to nail down than they thought. On May 24, 2011, nearly 3 years after Caylee disappeared, the trial of Caylee Anthony officially began in Orlando. And let me tell you, it was a spectacle. People camped outside the courthouse for seats. TV crews set up scaffolding. Bloggers live-tweeted every moment. Inside the courtroom, tension you could slice with a knife. The prosecution's case was simple in theory. Casey wanted freedom. Caylee was in the way. She chloroformed her, duct taped her mouth, and disposed of the body like trash. They leaned hard on the forensic evidence. The smell in the car, the chloroform. The internet searches, the duct tape. They even showed the now famous tattoo, Bella Vita, and framed it as a celebration of Casey's new life post-Caylee. They painted a picture of a cold, calculated killer. But the defense came out swinging with something no one expected. Jose Baez, Casey's attorney, stood up and opened with a bombshell. Caylee Anthony was never murdered. She drowned accidentally in the family pool. What? That was the first time anyone had ever heard that story. According to Baez, Caylee died on June 16th. George Anthony, Casey's father, found the body, and they both panicked. George told Casey to lie. They hid the death to avoid prosecution. He then accused George of sexually abusing Casey as a child, claims George denied under oath. The prosecution was blindsided. There was no physical evidence of drowning. No signs Caylee had been in the pool. No evidence backing the abuse allegations. But here's the thing, the defense didn't have to prove Casey was innocent. They just had to plant doubt. They brought in experts to challenge the forensics, questioned the science behind the cadaver dog hits, argued the smell could have come from trash or food. They even showed how flawed the state's timeline was. That while Casey's behavior was bizarre, it wasn't proof. And let's be honest, the prosecution's case was mostly circumstantial. There was no definitive cause of death, no confession, no physical evidence placing Casey at the scene where the body was dumped. For weeks, the trial gripped the nation. People debated every witness, every photo. Casey's facial expressions were scrutinized like stock charts. One day, she looked bored. The next, devastated. Cameras never stopped rolling. And then, on July 5, 2011, the jury came back. July 5, 2011. The courtroom is silent. The world is watching. After nearly 11 hours of deliberation, the jury files in. Caylee Anthony stands stone-faced next to her legal team. The clerk reads the verdict. Count 1, first-degree murder. Not guilty. Count 2, aggravated child abuse. Not guilty. Count 3, aggravated manslaughter of a child. Not guilty. Casey breaks down. She starts sobbing. Her attorney, Jose Baez, hugs her tightly. Outside the courthouse, yes, people scream. Protesters chant justice for Caylee. Some cry. Others throw their signs. Reporters look stunned. America had collectively decided Casey was guilty, and now the justice system had said she wasn't. The jury later explained their reasoning. They didn't say she was innocent. They said they couldn't convict someone without proof. We were sick to our stomachs, one juror said. But the law said beyond a reasonable doubt, and we just didn't have that. And that's the brutal truth of it. The law requires evidence, not emotion. And while everything felt suspicious, Casey's behavior, the trunk, the lies, there was no smoking gun, no cause of death, no eyewitness, no direct connection between Casey and Caylee's remains. She was found guilty only of lying to police, 4 misdemeanor counts. For that, she served about 2 more weeks in jail. With time served, she walked out a free woman on July 17, 2011. But she didn't walk out into freedom. Not really. Because the court of public opinion had already made up its mind, and it wasn't going to forget. After the verdict, Casey disappeared from public view almost immediately. She went into hiding, reportedly staying at homes owned by members of her legal team. She couldn't go outside without being recognized. Couldn't go online without seeing death threats, memes, hate pages. She was America's villain, a modern-day pariah. Over the years, bits and pieces of her post-trial life have surfaced. She filed for bankruptcy in 2013. She was photographed in Florida, occasionally going out in disguise. In 2020, she reportedly launched a private investigation firm. Yes, really, claiming she wanted to help people who were wrongly accused. She's also tried to reshape her narrative. In 2022, Caylee Anthony appeared in a Peacock docuseries, Caylee Anthony, Where the Truth Lies. It was her first on-camera interview in over a decade. In it, she claimed again that Caylee drowned. She doubled down on accusations against her father, George. She cried. She spoke softly. She insisted she never hurt her daughter. And it reignited the same firestorm all over again. People were furious that she was being given a platform. Others wanted to hear her side, but most didn't buy it. She's just trying to stay relevant. She's cashing in on tragedy. We still don't have answers. And that's the thing. No matter how many interviews she gives, no matter how much time passes, we still don't really know what happened to Caylee. No one has ever been held accountable for her death. And for many people, that wound still feels raw. It's been over 15 years since Caylee Anthony's disappearance, and yet this case still lingers in the public imagination like a ghost. Why? Because it wasn't just about a crime. It was about trust. About the face of a young mother who didn't act the way people thought a grieving parent should. About the justice system working as designed and still leaving people unsatisfied. The Caylee Anthony case became a cultural landmark, a turning point for how we consume true crime. It was one of the first trials where social media, cable news, and online sleuthing collided in real time. People became invested. Everyone had a theory. Everyone had a side. And when the verdict dropped, it was like a collective gasp. Since then, the case has inspired countless documentaries, books, podcasts, YouTube breakdowns. You name it. There's something about the contradictions that won't let people move on. A mother partying while her daughter is missing. Duct tape. Chloroform. A child in the woods. A not guilty verdict, but no satisfying answers. Even if you believe Casey didn't kill Caylee, you're still left with the undeniable truth. A 2-year-old girl vanished, died, and was discarded like trash. And someone knew exactly what happened. But no one has ever been charged with her murder. So the public keeps revisiting it. Not just to point fingers, but to try and understand. To get some kind of closure. But maybe that's the thing. With some cases, closure isn't part of the deal. So what do you think of today's video? Do you believe Caylee Anthony got away with murder? Or do you think the system got it right? Tell us what you think in the comments. We read everything. And if there's a case you want us to feature next, we want to hear it. And hey, if you like this story, it would mean a lot to us if you like and subscribe. This helps us keep uncovering the dark, strange, and tragic corners of history that others shy away from. 0.5s say our tagline with us. 0.5s close the book, if you can. This is Black Chapter.